If you want to start using artificial lighting, you've probably noticed that there's a ton of lights on the market. There's a ton of modifiers and softboxes on the market. So which do you pick? In today's video, I'm actually going to be answering one of those questions, and I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite must-have softboxes and modifiers that I use as a professional food photographer. Now, these are the exact modifiers that I've used to create images that look like this, this, and this. So if you want to know exactly what I use and how you can actually recreate the same kind of images, then stay tuned. Now, before I actually jump into the actual modifiers, in case you're wondering what's even a modifier, well, a modifier is anything that you actually put in front of your light or anything that your light travels through before it actually reaches your set and your food. So it could be a softbox, it could be an umbrella, it could be a diffuser, or even just a white piece of cloth. So basically anything that you put in front of your light to actually change your light, to disperse your light, to diffuse your light, or modify and shape your light. And I always say to my students that it's really not the actual light that matters, but it's the modifier that defines your end result. So just like when you're using natural light, there's actually only one sun in the world, right? But everyone's images come out looking different. Even if you're photographing the exact same set, because what your light looks like is dependent on the shape of the window, the size of the window, how far you photograph from the window, what time of day it is, what the weather's like outside. So always think of your light as the sun and your modifier as the window. Now, everyone's sun is going to be exactly the same, but it's your modifier or your window that's actually going to be different. Now, as I go through the different modifiers, I also want you to ignore the brand of modifier, but actually focus on the size of the modifier as well as the shape of the modifier, as those two things will actually dictate the type of light or the style of light you actually achieve. Okay, let's jump in. Now, the first modifier that I recommend food photographers have in their kit would be a regular softbox. And my choice of softbox is a Glow EZ 31 by 47 inches. Now, here are some example images that I've actually taken using this softbox. And you can see there's actually quite a bit of variety that you can achieve with this one modifier. Now, the reason why I recommend this shape of softbox and this size is that it's actually very similar in size to a window that you would be using for natural light. So the style of light you get from this softbox without any light manipulation at all is super soft and very natural looking. And this makes it super easy to use. Now, this particular size of softbox can actually be manipulated using flags so that you can actually achieve a soft light look as well as a dark moody look like this. So the same exact modifier for both of these images, it's now down to light manipulation. So it's a very versatile modifier, especially if you're a beginner, you're on a budget, and you only want one modifier for both a light airy look as well as a dark moody look. So whether you're a beginner or you're more intermediate or even advanced when it comes to artificial lighting, then this modifier is one I highly recommend. It's easy to set up, it doesn't take a lot of space, it's easily transportable, and it's actually a great price for what you're getting. And just one quick thing to note about this modifier is that it's actually a Bowens mount, which means it's going to work with any light that takes a Bowens mount. So whether it's a speed light or a strobe light or even an LED light. Now, the next modifier that I'm going to be recommending is likely something you already own. And it's actually one of these 5-in-1 diffusers. And a diffuser is a perfect modifier when you're starting out with artificial lighting. Now, the reason why I actually recommend this is that if you're using natural light, the likelihood is you probably own a diffuser just like this to kind of diffuse your window light. Now, a few things to remember. The larger the modifier, the softer your light's going to look. So I like to use a one that's about 150 to 200 centimeters. But depending on the size of your studio, you may want to purchase one that's slightly smaller. Again, this modifier produces beautiful, soft, natural-looking light because of its large size, as well as the thickness of the actual diffusion material. So if you're using this kind of modifier, you're likely to get images that look like these. But the cool thing about this modifier is that a large one can actually be manipulated to make it small. So this is the very same modifier that can be used to produce darker, more moody shots like this and this. And this is where your light manipulation skills and flagging come in to cut down the amount of light that's going through the modifier. So again, this makes it super versatile to achieve a variety of looks. Now, speaking of versatility, my next modifier is actually not something you want to buy as your first modifier, as it's not the most versatile product on the market. But it's actually something I highly recommend. It's my absolute favorite modifier when it comes to shooting dark, moody subjects. Whilst not versatile, this is actually my go-to modifier for creating moody shots that look like this and this. And this is a 1x3 strip box. Now, a little while ago, I mentioned that you can actually use a large softbox and then flag the light, or even use a huge modifier such as the diffuser and then use black cards to make it smaller. But both of those rely on you spending your time modifying the light and using black foam core or flags. And both those softboxes will actually rely on you having some knowledge about how light works and how to manipulate light to achieve the type of mood you want. Now, the great thing about this modifier is that it actually speeds up your workflow, because without even modifying anything, straight out of camera, straight out of the box, you can actually produce beautiful looking dark and moody shots. So really the amount of light manipulation required with this modifier for dark moody shots is pretty minimal. Now, I did say it's not versatile, but actually it kind of is, because I actually use this very same strip box as part of my kit and workflow when shooting beverages that require that nice even strip down the side of the glass or the bottle. Or if I want a really clean reflection on a product or those curved wine glasses. So I like to use this in conjunction with a diffuser roll to achieve that look. So although it's not super versatile, it's actually a diffuser that I use pretty often for my food photography. And the great thing about the one that I've recommended to you is that it's actually really easy to assemble. So you're not going to be spending hours with rods, etc., trying to put it together. Okay, 3 modifiers down, 2 more to go. But before I actually tell you about those 2, I actually want to invite you to my free masterclass, which is going to break down how you can master artificial lighting in less than 30 days. Now, if you've been fumbling about with artificial lighting, you're not sure what modifier to get, what equipment you need, how to get this thing working, I've got a link to the class in the description box below, and I'm going to be breaking down the exact blueprint on how you can actually learn how to use artificial lighting using a very easy, a stupid easy step-by-step formula. You're also going to learn exactly what lights you need based on your food photography goals. Like I've mentioned so many modifiers, there's also so many lights. Which one do you get? So we're going to break that down for you based on the type of food you shoot, as well as what your budget is, how much space you have at home. And this free class is also going to cover how to make your light look as natural as possible. Trust me, by the end of it, you'll know exactly how to fool people into thinking you used natural daylight. So make sure you sign up to this class using the link in the description box below. Okay, on to another modifier that is part of my go-to kit, and this is a 4x4 Scrum gym. So basically, this is a frame that's 4x4, and again, size is important because this is similar to the size of a window that you would have in your home or studio. And then you can actually sub out different thicknesses of diffusion. So you can use something like a quarter stop diffusion, which will give you shots like this one, or you can use even half stop, 3/4 stop, all the way through to a full stop of diffusion material. So because you have the ability to kind of change up the thickness of the diffusion material, this opens up a world of opportunity when it comes to the type of lighting that you want to achieve. Now, you're likely comparing this to something like the 5-in-1 diffuser, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was something like 150 by 200 centimeters. Now, the thing with that diffuser is that the thickness of the diffuser is around 3/4 stop to 1 stop, depending on what brand you buy. So you're kind of stuck with that one thickness of diffusion, which will give you great soft light. But the beauty of this modifier, the Scrum Gym, is that now I can change up that diffusion material as I please, depending on the style of light I want to create. Now, just bear in mind that this type of modifier does require a little bit more experimentation in terms of what distance to use it at, how to tilt it, and the placement of your light. So this is not one of those modifiers you take straight out of the box, you build it and you start using it straight away like the Glow EZ that I mentioned right at the beginning. But it is a lot more versatile and it can produce a lot more variety of looks. Now, the next modifier that I highly recommend that you have in your kit is a reflector. Now, you don't want to confuse this with this accessory, which is also called a reflector. And this reflector is actually used to basically bounce light into your set or take light away from your set. Now, the reflector that I'm talking about is this one, which is actually a modifier that's used to control the light spill coming from your bare bulb. So a normal bare bulb will have a beam of light that has an angle of about 120 degrees. And then when you put this reflector on top of that bare bulb, you're actually narrowing down that angle from 120 degrees to about 60 degrees. So I like to use this reflector when I'm actually trying to get a hard light source with clean shadows. And then another way I also like to use this is actually in conjunction with a large modifier, such as the 150 by 200 centimeter diffuser I mentioned earlier, or even the Scrum gem, or just a piece of diffusion material like a roll. And this just helps to control the amount of spill of light that's kind of going off everywhere. This helps me to concentrate my light even further. Now, if you've actually watched this video this far, then you're likely somebody who already uses artificial lighting or is thinking about wanting to add this to their workflow. So you can actually improve your food photography and the caliber of clients that you're working with. And that's why I want you to jump into this video where I actually talk about 5 strategies that you can incorporate into your workflow today to see massive shifts in your food photography, as well as the caliber of clients you're working with. I'll catch you there.